What makes most women start a business? Is it passion, money, or freedom? Welcome to the Female Founders, the podcast that takes you behind the scene with women who are founders and CEOs to help you start and scale a successful business of your own. I am your host, Diane Yetter. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Female Founders. Today's conversation is with Diane Yetter. Diane is a leading expert in sales tax, known as the sales tax nerd. She is the president and founder of Yetter Tax and the Sales Tax Institute. With over 40 years of experience, Diane helps businesses of all sizes navigate tax policy, planning, and technology. Good morning, Diane, and thank you so much for giving me that chance to have this conversation with you. And I'm looking forward to learn more about tax and sales tax, the things that we don't want to talk about. Let's ignore it. So, what inspired you to start an institute that focuses on sales tax?
That's a great question, and I'm happy to be here with you today. So my entire career has been spent working in sales tax. And prior to starting my business now, almost 30 years ago, I worked for one of the large accounting firms and had been working on a project with them and thought it would be a great opportunity to create a new service line for them. And they turned me down. And so I said, well, I think this is a great opportunity, so I'm going to go start my own business. And my business has two sides to it. I have a consulting business, and then I also run a training business. And the reason I wanted to start the training business was back at that time, there was really only one organization that did sales tax training. And sales tax is more complicated than most people realize. And in order to take that organization's training, you had to be a member of the organization. But so many people that have sales tax obligations and need to learn about it, it's a part of their job. So they would never join a sales tax organization because they wouldn't think of doing that. And so I wanted to create a training organization that was approachable, was easy for anyone who wanted to learn more about sales tax to attend.
Oh, this is awesome. I love the whole story. Like you went to them like, hey, I can help you with this. No, thank you. Goodbye. And you didn't, most people will have stopped right there. Okay, if they say no, that means it's not a great idea. Forget about it. Who knows 30 years from now, you'll be doing the exact same thing that they turned down. I mean, like you could have just walked away from it. It's good when you just stand on ground,
It was, and what's funny is now when I went out and did this, there was only one other company that did what I was. Today, all of the major accounting firms, all of the mid-size accounting firms, lots of consulting firms, lots of independent firms like mine are doing what I'm doing. But I luckily had the vision that this was what was needed and stuck to my guns and took the chance and went out and did it.
But now that you have your competition group, because before you said it was just the organization that you need to be a member to actually even take that training. Mm-hmm. So now that you have many other competition, because they pretty much other people just follow what you are doing and just like, hey, she's doing it, I can go do it too. So how is it going? Is it the same? Anything changed? Did you have to change your concept or anything like that to stay in the market?
Certainly on the training side of the business, there's more competition. And part of it is from people that do what I do for training for free. So a lot of consulting firms or software companies will offer training for free. And I have a training business, which means I charge people for the training. And so what we've really done is we've leaned into what differentiates us from our competition, whether it's free or paid. And so we've really developed a reputation for giving people practical knowledge. So if they come to our class, they're going to learn the theory, but they're also going to learn how to apply it in what they need to do every single day. And so that's what we have leaned into. We aren't a sales pitch. So a lot of the training that is done for free is by somebody that's trying to sell you their services. So they teach. Yeah. they tease you with the information, but don't give you everything.
That's what I
And
was thinking. That's what I was thinking when you say that. Go ahead.
and so what we really do is we say, you're here to learn. We are here to teach you. And we're going to give you as much information as you want. We make our faculty very accessible during the class. We keep our classes smaller so that you can
Mm-hmm.
have a lot of one-on-one interaction. And we have very large companies that send their people to us that are specialists in sales tax, but we also have people. We've had CEOs from small businesses come to our training because they need to better understand what the implications are for their business. And so that has really helped us stand out. We also have a website that's been around for almost 30
Yes.
years, so we're highly trafficked. We get referenced a lot. Our competition regularly uses our website and our content because they know that it's the best. And
No
so
way.
yes, it's really funny, and we are honored that people trust us with that and know that we've got the right information out
That's one thing I never heard of. I'm competing with her, but hey, I can just use all her information to go to your team. So don't you? You mean like I think that's a great business market right here for you, Diane. You should be like, you can use it, but there's gonna be a fee every time you want to use my content.
Well, we do have stuff. We have a lot of stuff on our website that's available for free, but we also have different ways to get more sophisticated content, more advanced content, content that we keep gated that we use on the
Hmm.
consulting side of our business. And we have a membership, a community membership that people can become members of, and then they get access to more things. And so through that, they're paying for the membership, and that's where we will share more of that information. But
Information.
a big part of what my belief is government has a lot of obligations on business
That's
owners,
true.
and sales tax is something that is very often misunderstood and not taken seriously enough, and it can put businesses out of business. And I don't want that to happen to anybody. And so if we can make resources available, then that's what I'm going to do. Some of the people, all they can afford is our free resources, and other
Yeah.
people realize that they need additional help. And because we're so visible, they come to us. And so we get a lot of business from the free information put out there, because they come to trust us and they
Yeah.
realize that we really know what we're talking about.
But now, when you say that they come to you, let's say they get the membership and they have questions, does that mean they can hire you as a consultant or something like that? How does that work?
Exactly. So because we have the two sides of our business, we have people that come to us that have just found our resources for free, and they say, okay, I now realize I need help. Who can I trust? And because they've trusted our information, they have found us. They see that we are providing information at no charge to them, but now they need more help. They say, who am I going to go to? I'm going to go to this person
Awesome,
that has
right.
already helped me without charging me anything. And then we have people that might be in our membership or maybe have taken one of our paid classes that then realize, okay, she really understands my
Then,
business.
yeah.
She understands my issues. I've heard her talk about it. I've invested maybe a smaller sum of money because they've taken maybe just one of our webinars and they've heard me talk about their issues. It's like, okay, I now know I have a bigger problem than I thought I did. Who do I trust? I'm going to trust Diane and her
Right.
organization and come and get more
But now, when we talk about sales tax in the United States, every state have their own, not just that, also even counties and have their own tax, sales tax. How do you handle all that? Because we're looking at, I mean, like it's a lot of states, a lot of counties.
help. It is, and you're right. Every state in the U.S. has different laws. We have 4 states that don't have a sales tax, so we've got 46 states, including D.C., that have sales tax, and the rules differ state by state. I've been doing this my whole career. I've been doing this for about 40 years, and so I've gotten a lot of information in my head, and people always, how do you know all that? It's
Yes.
practice. This is what I do, but I don't know everything. I do have to look stuff up, but I know how to look this and I know what trends are, and I know what, like, if somebody asks me a question, I go, okay, I know that this is the issue in state A, but your question is in state B. I know it's something that I need to go look up, and that's what experience
But, but now, if you're looking at there's something you said earlier, and you're looking at the you said that there is 4 states that's without sales tax.
brings.
What's 4 states? Seriously, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so Delaware, Montana, Oregon, and New Hampshire don't have any general sales tax, and then the state of
Oh,
Alaska doesn't have a state tax, but it has a lot of local tax. And states that don't have general sales taxes, sometimes they have taxes that are almost like a sales tax, like a tax on restaurants or on lodging or on telecommunications, but not on general merchandise that you go and buy.
oh, interesting. So does that mean they have like, for example, federal tax itself, but they just don't have the sales tax only? Is that what it is?
Correct. So when you think about how do states generate revenue for them to provide their services, there are a
Right.
variety of different taxes. So the federal tax goes to the federal government, but what most states have, not all, have a income tax that pyramids
Mm-hmm.
off of or starts from the federal tax. There's sales taxes, there's property taxes. Another big area that we're seeing is amusement taxes. There's lodging taxes. There's
Amusement.
meals taxes. Um, there are all kinds of different taxes that we're seeing states look to, particularly now as the federal government is reducing funding to the states. The states still need to provide services to their residents and provide things like roads and schools and healthcare and different services, and they have to get their money from somewhere. So states that don't have a general sales tax, they may have other types of taxes, just as states that don't have an income tax, like Florida or Texas or Washington, they have other taxes, or they may have, in the case of Florida, or I'm sorry, in the case of Texas and Washington, they have very broad sales taxes that tax a lot of things that other states don't tax.
Don't tax.
So different states want to appeal to different types of people in order to attract businesses and individuals to their state.
With everything that's happening right now, like you said earlier, federal is not calling money to the state. Does that mean that the state will need to put the sales tax higher so that they can meet all those requirements that they need to meet?
Well, they'll have to raise taxes, and it's going to be interesting to see what avenue do the different states take. One of the big things that states are looking at is as everything goes much more digital than tangible. So think about, you used to buy software on a disc, or you bought a book in a printed format, or you went and rented a DVD to watch a movie. Well, now all of
Yeah.
that is digital, and
Oh,
so most states start with taxing things that are tangible, things you can pick up and carry. And so as more and more goes digital, states are trying to figure out how to replace that lost revenue. And so we're seeing a broad expansion on states looking to tax digital goods. I'm working on a couple of different task forces right now that are looking at that and just trying to figure out how to define those things
yes.
so that the states can tax it.
You have worked with businesses of all sizes. So we know that's what the government gonna do, and not much we can do about it. But right now, what are the biggest challenge company face when it's gonna come to sales tax compliance with all of this going on?
It's a big issue, and so different companies have different methods of handling that. There's software companies. When I started in this field, there were only 2 companies that sold software that calculated sales tax. People in many businesses, 30, 40 years ago, they custom built software. Today, there's a number of different companies that are out there. There's been more and more that have added just in the last couple of years. I think at least 5 new software companies that have come to the market. And some of them are specializing, like there's one that's come out that specializes more on software and software as a service, called SaaS. Others are specialized in different industries. One that started out dealing more with telecommunications, and now they're moving into handling other types of taxes. There's a group of states that have come together called the Streamlined Sales Tax Organization that helps and has worked to make things more consistent across their member states. There's 24 member states. And part of what they do is they offer free services to certain types of businesses that qualify. And so that's how a lot of states are trying to make it easier. But it is a challenge. And there was a U.S. Supreme Court decision back in 2018 that made it now that companies that exceed a certain amount of sales into a state is required to collect tax. So you may have
Oh,
purchased things online, back, 6, 7, 8 years ago, and you went, oh, I don't have to pay sales tax. And today that's not happening because many businesses
yeah.
now are required to collect that sales tax. So states are imposing that collection responsibility on many more businesses and many more smaller
And
businesses. And that's part of what we do is we serve a lot of those small businesses. We also service some very large businesses, but we've kind of shifted our focus in the last 5 to 6 years to focus on these smaller businesses that don't have a sales tax professional.
so now, what you talk about software, which one do you usually refer your clients to, or is it based on what type of products or services you are selling?
That's exactly what we do. So there's a number of different factors that we look at. So we're partners with many of the software packages, software companies that are out there, so that we can look at it in an unbiased way
Mm.
and say, all right, how big are you? What kind of volume do you have? Because some of the software companies build their pricing based on your revenue, and others build it based on the number of invoices that you process.
Oh,
Some of them have better content, tax rules on different things. So I mentioned there's a couple of them that have come out that are specific for software. So if we have somebody that's selling a lot of software, they might be a better fit than somebody that sells a lot of clothing and food, that there's a different product that might be a better fit for them.
but
So we go through and evaluate what their actual needs are and then connect them with the right provider.
that's very interesting. It's almost like when you pick in to, like for example, as an accounting, they need a software for
Mm-hmm.
the clients, right? It's pretty much almost the same thing. But I wonder,
Exactly.
how come something like QuickBooks doesn't do it all, like the entire thing in general?
Well, all of the different financial accounting software packages, even shopping cart systems, all have some sales tax functionality built in. Sometimes that works. Sometimes it's not sophisticated enough because the sales tax rules can get really, really crazy in certain states and in certain industries. That would be one of the things that we evaluate is using QuickBooks or Shopify. Is their tax functionality sufficient to do the tax calculation, which is one part of the need. You also then, I think, we're in income tax season right now, so everybody's thinking about doing
Mm-hmm.
their income tax returns. Well, sales tax returns generally have to be done every single month. So it's not once a year, it's once a month
So yeah.
that you have to do that. And so then you need a way to file all of those tax returns. And so a lot of those solutions that are built into the shopping cart or the accounting packages don't prepare the tax return, where a specialized sales tax solution will not only calculate the tax, but also file the tax return.
So will the softwares you were talking about earlier, will they do that for you, or do you still need, just like when you're filing your taxes, you still need to get a professional to file it for you?
Many of them will do the returns also, but then there's also companies like mine. I actually don't do the monthly tax returns, but we have other providers that we partner with. So sometimes our clients don't want to use the software to do it, or they're using something that doesn't offer the tax preparation service. And so that's where we'll connect them with a resource like that, or their accountant may be the one that will do
Man, every single month, huh?
it every single month.
I was thinking more every 3 months sound better.
There's some states that you will do it quarterly, but most of them, if you're big enough, will they want their money. So just like think of it, your employer withholds your payroll taxes, so your withholding taxes. Those get turned over every 2 weeks, usually, sometimes weekly, depending upon your frequency of payroll. Sales tax is just like that. It's what we call a trust tax, because the seller in the sales tax, who the employer is withholding tax, they're taking money from somebody else that is trusting them to turn it over to the government. And the government wants that money as soon as they can get it. And so that's why you have more frequent remittance, because otherwise the business or the employer has use of that money and could be earning interest off of it or using it for other means. And the states want to get the interest on it themselves and not let the business keep it.
But now, let's say that I live in Montana and I
Mm-hmm.
have a client that purchased something from me in California, for an example. So now, do I collect sales tax since Montana doesn't have sales tax, or do I still need to collect it because California requires sales tax?
So if you have enough activity in California, then because the ship due is California, you would need to collect the California tax.
Mm. But do you need to file any type of paperwork or anything like that to do so? No, don't say
You
yes, say
do.
no.
You do. You do. You have to register. You have to tell the state that you're going to be collecting their tax. So you fill out paperwork to get registered. You get a license number. Think of it kind of like your social security number. The business gets an
Mm-hmm.
account number with each different state, and then they will send you the information. And then every periodic, so if it's monthly or quarterly, you'll log on to the California website. You'll file the information. You'll fill out a tax return, and then you'll pay
Oh.
them the money.
This is all interesting. So pretty much if you end up doing business across the United States, you might end up have to pay every single state that requires sales tax, sales tax.
Exactly.
Amazing. But do you know how many people that don't know that? Because they
There
just
are
know
a
I'm in
lot.
my state, I just pay taxes in my state and be done with it. But again, Diane, let's say that they still pay taxes, but they pay the tax to their own state. That the money they collected from that customer that they need to ship the item to Texas, let's say, then they take that money, they pay it to California because that's where they base. The company is based in California. Will they get in trouble with Texas at one point of time?
They will. They will. I actually just have a new client that came to me that was collecting tax in their home state instead of their delivery state. And so now we are working on getting them cleaned up in the delivery state and getting a refund of the money they pay to their home state so that they can pay it
Mhm.
to the right state.
This is so interesting. So someone really probably will never think of it. I guess that's the reason why when you're starting a business like that, you really, especially if you're selling products, you really need to get sales tax, someone with sales tax experience to help you.
Exactly, exactly. And that's where we feel like our website, which is easy to find. If you Google, sales tax help, we often come up. Our website, salestaxinstitute.com, is highly trafficked. It is one of the top ranking resources if you ask questions about sales tax. And that's why we have so much information on the website, is to try to get these businesses understanding what their obligations are before it's too late.
Before it's too late. So now, you starting this business 30 years ago. So what have been some of the most rewarding and challenging aspect of running your own company?
Well, certainly, what has been rewarding is helping clients helping them be successful. If they've been in a situation where they've had a problem, negotiating some good settlements. So those are always rewarding. I'm very passionate about teaching. So when I see the light bulbs go off in the classroom when we're teaching somebody, that just makes me so happy that I've been able to take a complex subject that so many people don't want to know about,
Mm-hmm.
but they have to, and break it down in a way that they truly understand it, and now can go and try to make sure their company doesn't get in trouble. And then I've become fairly well known for that skill, and so probably one of my proudest moments is I was asked to testify before the Senate Finance Committee in DC twice now to help explain how this all works and what the burden is on small businesses. So that was certainly a highlight, bucket list item, so to speak, of my career.
What was that experience like, and what impact do you think you had? Because you mean like you're testifying in front of, it's a big thing.
It was a big thing. So the impact, I don't think anything is going to happen with the federal government doing anything. But what it did do is a lot of the states, heard what I said. And so a lot of what I focused on is the complexity and the inconsistency and also the burden on
Yes.
small businesses. And so that Supreme Court case that I talked about in 2018, it set a threshold of transactions that if a seller makes above that amount into the state, that's what makes a seller have to collect tax. And
Mm.
South Dakota was the state that took that case to the Supreme Court. And their threshold was $100,000 of sales or 200 invoices. And those 200 invoices bring in some very, very small businesses. Think of if you're selling something like hairbands, that you might sell for $3 or $4 or $5. 200 of those sales, you didn't sell very much. And now all of a
No.
sudden you have to go through all of these legal requirements, collecting tax, getting software, and many of the states had that 200 transaction count. And in the first testimony I did in 2022, that's what I focused on. I focused on that is just too low of a burden, or too
Yeah.
low of a threshold that created an extreme burden on sellers. And states heard, and we've now had, I think we're up to 8 states since 2022 that have eliminated that 200 transaction count. We have a couple more
Wow.
this year. So I like to think that it was my testimony that kind of got
Yes.
that ball rolling, because it really started. There were some states that changed it before that, but we've really had a number of changes since 2022.
So you did make an impact.
So I do like to think I made an impact, and it's raised the question. The testimony is still live out on the Senate website. We obviously had information on our website, and we've picked up clients or students that said, "I heard your testimony. I saw you." They now see me as clearly a nationally recognized expert on this, and so it has helped us in that way.
Yeah, I think it helps a lot. But you know that many women usually hesitate to into a leadership world. They, especially when you're looking at a male-dominated industry. So even though that, let's say you started that 30 years ago, but right now you probably will find more men doing it than women doing it. So it's become a male-dominated industry. So what advice do you have for women looking to advance their careers?
So that is something that is very much true. I mean, when I started, there were virtually no women in the field. I had another woman friend that started a business in sales tax a couple years before I did. And we were probably one of the few that were out there. Today, there's a lot of women in sales tax, but it still is very male dominated. I'm actually at a conference right now where they have a requirement that every panel has to have one woman or minority, because there's that few women that are out there speaking, and it tends to go to the men.
Yes.
And so that has been something that I have really focused on. Since 2020, I have been interviewing women in sales tax, and we have a series that we do called Women to Watch in Sales Tax. And I've interviewed, I think we're up to about 85 women
Wow.
that work in sales tax to give them a platform to do a little self-bragging about themselves and also to give advice to women. So I've asked
Yes.
all these women, what advice do they have? And I think there's a couple of themes that all of them have said in one way or another. The first is the importance of networking. This is a field that there are nuances in every single state, and no one, including me, is going to know the answer in every state, and you need to have connections. And so it is so important to meet other people, whether they are men or women, that you can call on when you need advice and counsel or an
Oh,
introduction to something, to someone to help you solve a problem. So all of them have given some, or many of them have given some sort of advice regarding networking. The second is this is a field that changes every single day. There are law
true.
changes, there are court cases that come down, there are interpretive rulings that the states give out. So it is a field that you never stop. I learn
Mhm.
every day. And so it's really important to just be a lifelong learner and be curious. And then I think the third thing is the importance of standing up for yourself and making sure that you're not sitting in the back of the room, pull your chair up to the table, say what you know, and make sure people hear your voice. And don't be afraid to say I don't know if somebody asks you a question. So if you're sharing information, you're prepared for the meeting. You're always going to get asked something that you may not know the answer to, and
Yes.
that it's perfectly fine to say I'm not sure on the answer to that. Let me research it, and I will get back to you. So to not feel intimidated because you don't know 100%,
And
but when you go into a meeting, particularly a meeting with maybe your CFO or a group of leadership in your company, or to a client if you're an advisor, and you're going to know more than probably anybody else in the room. And don't
yes.
feel intimidated just because somebody may have a higher title. If you were invited to the meeting, they want to hear your voice and make your
Hmm.
voices heard.
I love that. All three of them are important for women, especially
Mm-hmm.
networking. A lot of time we feel like we're left out of the womb because we don't know how to just go out there and say, "Hey, I'm this. I just starting this company." Because we got here,
Mm-hmm.
well, I'm new on it. What are they gonna think about? It's a bunch of men. So it's all these things that's kind of like stop us from moving forward. And sometimes we don't like to talk about the things we know. And we just
Right.
shout it up to ourselves. And I think one conversation I saw on LinkedIn that was for me, and they were talking about the fact that if someone want to know something about you, they should pay you for it. And I went against that conversation. I don't think I was the only one who went against it on LinkedIn. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think anyone like that, that I went against it because I felt like knowledge meant to be passed on. So if you spend 30 years, 40 years of learning something and you die with it, it was useless to me because you didn't pass it on. No one knows anything about it. So let's say you sit at home every single day, you say, I'm going to be the number one person to know how to cook white rice the perfect way.
Mm-hmm.
And you master it for 40 years. But you never teach anyone else how to make it perfectly, just like you. So now you will die. All that time you spend in that dies with you. So how did that exactly did anything on earth? He didn't do anything. He did something for you because you perfect it for yourself. But that was the discussion on LinkedIn. And my point of view was like, there's time to charge. Don't get me wrong, because we all have to make a living. But certain knowledge are meant to be passed on.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I have a bachelor degree, I have a master degree, I have an MBA, and with a PhD, school didn't teach me all the things I know. No, they didn't. Yes, I spent the money. The money I spent, I didn't spend it because I wanted to learn. I spent it
Hmm.
because I wanted the credibility, because that's the only way you can get it. If I told you every day I wake up, I go to the library, I read all these books, and I'm good at it, would you believe me? Absolutely not. But if I tell you I went to school, I get the PhD, you believe me right away because I went to school, I get the PhD. So that's how people think. So you go with what people think, right? But really, the things that you learn, it's at the job, just like you did. For 30 years, there's a lot of things you learned that you didn't learn in school. You're learning them because you're teaching them every day. You're making yourself available to learn them. Either you, like you said, you know where to go find the information to teach it to yourself so you can go teach it to others. So, like you said again, there's another thing you said, a lot of informations are available on your website for free. So knowledge is supposed to be passed on. And I think that's one of the things as women that's become a barrier for us. We think everything needs to be charged for. But in reality, it's not the truth. We need to give some information so that we can get people to understand what we are doing. If somebody called you and said, hey, I need a consultant for sales tax. Yeah, I can do that. That's going to be $200 for the consultant. That person gonna go to the next sales tax also and
Hmm.
then get it done there. It's I think that's one of the biggest things that I find, and a lot of people kind of like they need money and then they agree with it, but they didn't really. I felt like on that LinkedIn post, they didn't take a time to pause and think about it. They're just like, "Oh, you're right about that. I should charge for my services. I should charge for this." It's like I should charge for my knowledge. Somebody say they want to pick my brain. I should charge them to pick my brain. No, you don't actually have to.
And that's, I firmly believe with you. I believe I am with you on that. That it is, and that's a big part of who I am. Is, and I think women instinctively like to help people,
Yes.
and you have to know where to draw that line. So for many years, I would take phone calls or emails that just came in and answer those with no charge.
Yes.
And it started getting to where it was like 10 to 12 hours a week, and it was impacting my business. So now there are still some questions that we can answer in 5 minutes and a couple of things if we know
Mm-hmm.
it off the top of our head. Sure, we answer those. We have so much information on the website. But if somebody wants to have a more in-depth conversation, we now sell a 1 hour consultation. They don't have to sign a big engagement agreement. They don't have
Yes.
to make a long-term contract with us, a large financial investment. But if they really want an answer, most people are willing to pay for an
Pay
hour of
for
my
it.
time, and they get that answer. And sometimes that's all they need and we're done. Sometimes at the end of that call there is a request. Can you help us now? You gave us this
Uh,
answer, you gave us this recommendation, this is what we need to do. Can you help us now do that? And we say yes or no. Sometimes we can't, sometimes it's not what we do. But then we have that further conversation. And I think women sometimes are afraid to say, I am worth it. Even
yes.
what billing rate, as a professional service provider, I have to decide what will people pay for an hour of my time. And, when I started out, it was a fairly low number. We have gradually increased it. But if I was in a big firm, a big accounting firm, my rate would probably be 2 to 3 times higher than what it is.
I
But that's because there's so much overhead. And I decided where I want to be in terms of the market I want to serve. And I'm at a reasonable price. I am not the cheapest of my competitors, and I'm not the most expensive. And,
That's the
and I
part.
think that's a good spot for me to be in, because I want to be approachable, and that's a lot of what I really focus on. I want people to feel comfortable talking to me. I want people to feel like they're getting value for what they're paying for. And
Yes.
and that's something that women have to, and truthfully everybody has to figure out, what do you think
But
you're worth, and don't undervalue yourself, which I've done. And people say, Diane, people would pay a lot more for you. And there are some people that will, but there's a lot of people that I have decided I want to provide my services to that won't be able to pay
Okay.
significantly more than what we do. And I've built out my team, so I've got people at lower price points that can help with things that they don't necessarily need all of my years of experience. They can work that has a little bit less experience, or in some cases, a lot less experience, but it's more uh, administrative that they're doing, or a little bit more routine, and it's not,
Mm-hmm.
a structuring transaction where they want my years of experience. And so that's how we've been able to structure our business to help as many people as possible.
People that you can. And not only that, also, like you said earlier to me, that there's a lot of information on your website. So your
Mm-hmm.
knowledge, you already put a lot of it on your own website. So not only that someone really need a basic thing, they don't really need to talk to you. But again, if they need more, they can get a membership, they can get a consultation with you. There's other things they can do, but again, even your competition are using your own content. So that's mean that that's how much you put out there, you help people and they
Mm-hmm.
trust the work. So I love that because you're giving part of your knowledge out to others that they don't need to pay for that. And I think that that's a great thing. But I think what the part that I don't like is when people they don't give anything at all.
Right.
So they just want to get paid for every single thing. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, I feel like, well, how can anyone trust you if you don't want to give one tiny little bit of information
Exactly.
out there? So you're not building
Exactly.
any trust. All you want is getting paid and paid and paid and paid, especially if you're new in business, right? That's not
Mm-hmm.
something like you've been doing this for over 30 years. Your experience is over 40 years. If you said you're going to charge $1,000 for consultation, God damn, you're worth it because you've been doing it for such a long time. That
Right.
knowledge is very valuable. But again, I feel like there's time you probably will say, I want, like you mentor people. That's probably where you take that knowledge, you pass it on to somebody else
Mm-hmm.
because you mentors other people. So I guess that's the approach I was trying to take is passing that knowledge. It doesn't die with you. Because
Yes.
once it dies with you, your legacy, everything is done with you right there. That was
Exactly.
it.
Exactly. And that's what I think is so important. We, as part of our company, this is going to sound a little silly, but there's a lot of awards. This is one of them that I'm honored to have received. But a lot of people don't have opportunities to win awards because they're more junior in their career, and there's a lot of awards in the sales tech field that go to people that have lots of experience. Well, we created an award, and we're referred to as the Sales Tax Nerds. So we
Mhm.
have a Sales Tax Nerd of the Year award, and it
That's
doesn't
cool.
it doesn't go to the person with the most knowledge. It goes to the person with the most passion.
Ooh, I
And
love that.
so there's a competition, and there's interviews, and we grant one award a year. So we're on our fifth winner, and we that winner gets a year of mentorship with me. And so that's one of the things that people really, really, really love is the ability to have that year. They get an
Pass
award and they
it
get a lot of recognition and things like that. But many of them say, when we ask, why did you apply? And they say, because I want the opportunity.
You're passing on the knowledge. Here
I'm
we go.
passing on the knowledge. Exactly. Exactly.
Well, thank you so much, Dan. How can anyone reach out to you? I know you like to pass on your knowledge to others, applying for the award, or even they just need your support. Like you said, sales tax is complicated. So I don't think anyone wanna call me because you can see my face when she's talking about it. So I'm out of here. So don't call me, call her.
Sure. Well, the best way to find us is on our Sales Tax Institute website, so salestaxinstitute.com. We've got lots of resources out there. We'd love to have people check that out. You can always reach out to me through LinkedIn, Diane Yetter, Sales Tax Nerds, so you can look for that. And then our consulting page has information about our consulting services is yettertax.com.
Well, thank you so much, Dan, for giving me that chance to have the conversation with you. And also, thank you for exploding my brain with the sale taxes. It's going to take me a while too. process it all, but I'll get
Yes.
to it before I mess you.
Uh,
Again, sales tax is important, so people, we need to take it serious, especially if you're in business. And I appreciate what you do, teaching us how to manage our sales tax and stay away from getting in trouble with the state.
well, thank you so much, and it was a pleasure to chat.
Thank you for listening to Female Founders Podcast. That's it for this week's episode. Be sure to follow us on your favorite podcast app or connect with us on womel.com so that you don't miss our next episode. See you next time. Bye for now.